said, yeah, we got this guy Texas said he killed somebody here. That son of a... He said, I'm out here mowing my grass, and he starts shooting at me, so I drop on the ground and play dead. And then he drove off.
Someone going a little bit further, and someone just going, and leaving it, because I think people don't understand that there are those types of men and women in law enforcement that give a shit to go that far.
I said, what's your deal, dude? I said, you seem like a nice guy, because we're talking about all sorts of stuff. I said, you seem like a nice guy. If I saw you at a bar, I'd probably buy you a beer. He said, yeah, I'd probably kill you. He's smiling, but his eyes told a different story.
Blu Wolf Podcast.
This episode of the Blu Wolf Podcast is brought to you by Blue Line Professional Inspections. Check out blproinspections.com or call 210-771-8831 for all your inspection needs, including home inspection, wood-destroying insect inspection, sewer drain inspection, and on-site water treatment inspection. Blue Line is a first responder-owned business.
Welcome to the Blu Wolf Podcast, another exciting episode, I hope, for you all. We're going to mix it up as we already have before. Thanks to our editor of these podcasts, Nick Izagiri, who brought this up a while back about true crime, speaking about true crime. And we'll get into that, and I think it's going to be exciting and great, and I'll describe, exactly why. But I want to give a shout out to our San Antonio Police Department bomb squad. I was at a restaurant near where I live, and I ran into one of the police officers. He's still a police officer, but he is also part of the bomb squad. I'm not sure if he's still with narcotics, but because they have full-time and part-time people. But he was picking up some food, and he said, "Hey, man, what's going on? I'm getting some food." Invited me over. They're having a little get-together for his birthday. I had a long day, but I couldn't make it. But we did have a little bit of time, so I took my family home. I told my wife, I said, "Hey, man, this guy's a great guy. He's really shown it to me as when I was there in the San Antonio Police Department. I want to go get him something, a bottle of liquor. That's usually what most people get, and appreciate, and just stop by for a little bit." And so I did so, because he didn't live far from us either. And I'll mention his name, Chad Culp, because he told me he didn't care if he was associated with me nowadays. But it was his birthday, and happy belated birthday, obviously. And there were some other officers there from the bomb squad. And speaking with them, they all mentioned the podcast, and conversation talked about that. And then some of the issues that I spoke to them or spoke in the podcast about, and they had more to say and asked certain questions. That was awesome, But the issue, as I've mentioned, and I think it's a joke, that the department is watching these podcasts and listening for some of the things that we say, me and David Sapansky, that are obviously a lot of what the other officers want to say, but they can't because they fear about retaliation within the department in several ways. And I've talked about those before, but I want to give them the bomb squad a shout out and thank you all for listening. Please share. I know liking, because things can be a little dangerous nowadays, and they shouldn't be, because you have that freedom. At least we thought we did, but I appreciate that. Just some updates. We had a mayoral election in San Antonio, Texas. There were like 27 candidates, a shitload, and it's finally come down to two. Rolando Pablos, who is a self-admitted fiscal conservative, and Gina Ortiz-Jones, who really won't say, because they say that they're supposed to be bipartisan, which is total bullshit, because she worked under the Biden administration as an undersecretary, I believe, for the Air Force. This is you talk about very, very stark contrast with these two people. She is definitely a Democrat, and she sells everything that the Democrats were pushing that got voted away in this last presidential election. But she's bringing them to San Antonio. she's going to want to do more of the same because apparently, everybody else was wrong and we're still going to push this crap. I listened to the debate that one of the last ones they had. There's another one scheduled, and that's all I kept hearing was that DEI stuff, LGBTQ, EIEIO. I don't know what the hell, how many more letters are involved in it, but she would not answer or directly answer whether she defund the police, which we have to know they want to. And that's going to be really bad for San Antonio and public safety. I'm telling you right now, it's not a maybe. It's true, because she's going to do a lot of what the left has already been wanting to do. So get out and vote in this election. Tell your family to vote. This next is June 7th, and really push Rolando Pablos. He is a former Texas Secretary of State. He has a good relationship with the government and Greg Abbott's office, and he's a former businessman, and he has great ideas for bringing big business to San Antonio, obviously increase the revenue, economic progress here as well. But the one thing that we're going to talk about today, and it's very fitting because we had Fiesta that just ended a week ago. And this was David's idea. A lot of the latest ideas we've had have been David's, thank God, for him to be able to think of these. But we have Mr. Raymond Roberts here. And can I call you Ray Bob? Because that's what we called you for years.
I know what you call it. That's what.
Yeah. He is a retired detective from the San Antonio Police Department. He was in homicide for 18 years. That's a long time. I just learned that. I mean, I knew he was, but talk about a glutton for punishment. Yeah. So and we were just talking about this. I've known Ray Bob probably my whole career. I've seen you at different times, and like he mentioned, we had not really worked together per se, but whenever you're working and doing what you're supposed to be doing, of course, being on SWAT, we were everywhere. I would see him in different places, doing his job, even as a patrolman when you were out there on the east side. And then when I was on SWAT, obviously some investigations, probably ran some warrants for you, things like that. And this guy's been a really upstanding guy. We mostly see each other on social media nowadays, and just different reasons and parts and for whatever topic is available at that time. David's new to social media. I think you've learned a little bit more now.
Very little. I know how to log on.
Very little. He knows how to like and all this other stuff, but and even share. You shared what
I did.
a couple of things there before.
The evolution of me, right?
Right. So speaking of Fiesta, there was in April 18th of 1999, there was a child abduction from Fiesta, from Market Square actually, of a 9-year-old girl named Mary B. Bettis. And it was just one of these where, and if you know about Fiesta events, Market Square at that time, and they changed things up this year, but is open venue. There's no gates. You don't pay to get in. There's several entrances and exits to get into. It is fun if you're in the right place, but to me, and I'll just be straightforward, there's a lot of riffraff that goes into there. Every time I worked it was just a night of breaking up fights, coming out smelling like beer, because when they're fighting, you're breaking them up, throwing beer at you, tired, being on your feet all day. Of course, the good thing was you could eat good Mexican food, gorditas and tripa tacos and stuff like that, all the frescas. Yeah, stuff like that. But she was abducted on that day, and a week later, she was found near the Alazan Creek on the west side, dead, of course. And it was a big deal, obviously, because obviously during that week they were searching for her, didn't know what happened to her, and obviously up until the point that they find her dead, their family's praying that she's still alive, and all. But Ray Bob worked on this case, and he wasn't the only one. He was in homicide, obviously, at the time. There were some other great detectives that worked on it. And we want to talk about it because I believe it since we just had Fiesta, and it is definitely a story that involves a serial killer. And I'll mention his name. I know a lot of times you hear stories, even active shooters. I don't want to mention his name and glorify him. It's not about glorifying him. We don't know who the hell we're talking about, because you can look him up. There's a lot more that you can look up. You know, when I Googled his name, boom, it popped right up on the very top. There was not anything. I mean, he's in Wikipedia and all this other stuff. Tommy Lynn Sells is his name. But he has since been put to death, thank God. And obviously he is being judged by a higher being than we are. But David, do you have anything more to add to that?
Yeah, no, I do. Like, thank you very much, Ray-Bob, for coming on. We've known each other a long time as well. We worked together through some SOU units in the past. I was telling you right before we started, back in the 41 days, I was probably one of the tightest crews, one of the best crews that I've ever been around. And you were on that crew. As far as Mary B goes, we really try to be respectful of the family. We had no avenue to get in a hold of the family. We wanted to definitely let them know we were going to talk about this very sensitive and probably still ongoing difficult situation for them. It's an important case. It led to his death, rightfully so. We want to let the family know that we haven't forgotten her, and this comes from the best possible place in terms of respect for the child. Thank you, Ray-Bob. It's a pleasure to have you on here. It's a pleasure talking to you again after these many years. And thank you for volunteering to come on. Your case was a good example of what good detective work can do. And I know it was a collaboration, but at the end of the day, you're the one that sat down with this guy and cleared the case here in San Antonio. So awesome work. Thank you.
We were talking earlier, and a lot of times, and even with Dave and I talking, sometimes certain people, it's like, man, we should have recorded this conversation, because it's all natural. There's no pressure, no cameras on you or anything like that. And we were talking about Ray-Bob's career, and you work the east side of San Antonio. And if you're from San Antonio, which we have a lot of our local listeners, they kind of know the demographics of the east side of town and things like that. When I first started on SWAT, we worked everywhere. We did a lot of directed patrol. These guys don't do that very much anymore. So I didn't like working east, and not to sound racist or anything. Of course, anything that we say nowadays, if you're conservative, is racist. But I just couldn't figure out the African American culture. I could figure out the Hispanics, work anywhere and develop that, that my sixth sense was, working in those other areas, but on the east side, I could not figure it out. Why did you last so long there?
I loved it. I grew up on the east side.
Oh, did you?
I went to Highlands High School. I grew up 42 section, across the IH-10. Southeast side, not really east side, southeast side.
Where'd you go to high school?
Highlands.
Okay.
Highlands High School.
That's where Rocky went to school.
Yeah. But I loved it. I was there 10 years. I got out of the academy in 88, and I promoted from the east side in 98. But did 8 years dog watch. But as y'all know, in that time, it was rocking. Guns, dope, but shootings, murder, you had everything. Every night. Yeah. Then when I went to B shift.
But it was exciting.
It was exciting. I loved it. I could not wait
because we could do what police were supposed to do.
We were policemen.
Yes.
When I went to B shift on the east side, I'm driving around and people wave at me. What the hell was that? When you get stuck so long with the bad, and then you went to the B shift where normal people, I say normal, not being disrespectful, but people that work, law-abiding people that work, they get up in the morning, go to work, come home, and they're waving at you, and I was like,
with all fingers,
nothing in their hands, and it was kind of a shock. But then when the sun went down, all the good people locked themselves in the house. Okay. Then we went to work.
That's the thing about police work, right? I mean, you have to almost discipline yourself to know when you have to move from this arena to that arena, right? Because there's more good than bad, but when you're only dealing with the bad, you can get a little jaded, right?
And we've always said that about different areas of town. And in San Antonio, it was like, there's a lot of good people here.
Oh,
but everywhere. Right. And then, there are jobs in the police department to help those people. And I wholeheartedly support all that, but I didn't want those people.
When is the only time we have dealings with the good people is when you're taking a burglary report, or you're taking a theft report, or maybe an accident report, But the majority of our time, especially back then, wasn't dealing with the good people. We were out chasing dope and chasing youngs.
And again, that's what I'm saying. That's what I wanted to do. I wanted to go chase those people. Yeah, we did deal with them, and obviously because we're good people. And I've always said this about law enforcement. You know, they at the time we went through, what was it, almost a year vetting process, right? Process, almost a year. So they go through all this to find out if they hired a good person, a good moral person, obviously an educated person, someone that's going to make the right decisions, someone that is less apt to make the wrong decisions, things like that. And I've always said, then why don't you lean our way when someone alleges some bullshit? They go on internal affairs, and already, as we thought, I'm guilty until proven innocent. Well, we all know that that's not what it states in the real law, that you're supposed to be innocent until proven guilty.
Yeah.
But with us, here we are, you know, they'll take us off the streets, they'll put us in admin as if we did something wrong.
Held to a higher standard.
Right. But you just vetted me. You know, I've been through this, not to mention all the work that I've done before, and here you'll believe this piece of shit, usually. You know, and I'm not saying all people that complain are pieces of shit, but a lot of them were total bullshit.
Yeah.
You know, that we had to deal with. And, you know, there were times that we just didn't sweat it either. We knew that it was like, okay, you know, we got to go through this little process or whatever. But nowadays, you know, I'm hearing that IAs kind of sometimes fabricate things and you know, and really going after the wrongdoing that's alleged that you have.
I hate to say, but thank God I'm gone.
Yeah.
You know.
Well, I know we're getting off into, like, we wanted to talk about your great work on the loss of this wonderful child.
Oh, 100%. But I wanted to get in and talk about how.
Yeah,
you know,
no, but I mean, you said it, so I'll say it. Internal affairs nowadays is being directed, like literally directed by the chief's office. Where back in the day, they were investigators for internal affairs who investigated the case and then reported them up the chain. So it's gotten convoluted. So everything is being worked from the top down. And so they're kind of, you know, doing exactly what they're told and have to run by everything they do by the chief's office. So that in itself is something we've talked about before.
It might be strange coming from me because y'all know me, but we need a turnout first.
Of course we do. We've said that before.
Yeah, 100%.
And that held to a higher standard thing is a real thing. We should be, but we shouldn't be held to a standard that,
like you said, the whole system has been retarded. It's gotten to where they're looking for minor things. Guys get in trouble for minor things.
And there's ways to, and he knows as an administrator, there's ways to handle that, nip it in the bud before it gets worse.
absolutely. That should be the end goal for all of us, right? Teachable moments, make them better, get them back on the street, and hopefully they'll grow into like that maturation process to go from an early officer to a mid-level and senior officer. But sometimes that works and sometimes it doesn't.
Yeah. No, but I wanted to, you know, express that where you actually came from within the department, you know. And
Ray Bob was a hard-hitting street officer that I personally knew, you personally knew, and everybody on that crew. So anybody that might be watching for that old 41 section, nothing but the highest level of respect.
And that was
for all of you.
good.
in fact, I'll send it to some of the people that I don't know if they watch or not, but definitely send it. And I'm sure they'll appreciate seeing you and listening to this. How did you get involved in this case? You were not the lead investigator, right?
Billy Rutland was the lead investigator on this case. Y'all know Billy Rutland.
He was my supervisor in SWAT.
On SWAT.
Yeah.
And when he was a murder detective, he was top notch. He, you know, if somebody in my family got murdered, I want people like Billy Rutland to
It was Billy and Barry Gresham, right? So you had two for the price of one, right? Yeah, both wonderful officers.
I don't know about they're even. Barry was like, you know, another 4 people or so.
Yeah, but Billy worked it and worked it for a good hard month. I mean, they had.
So they assigned it. It happened. They assigned it to Billy.
They assigned it to Billy, and they brought in all sorts of people, suspects, witnesses. And Billy worked it until he got promoted to sergeant.
Okay.
And then he left.
I see.
I don't know who, when we would leave like that, like when I left, if I had any open cases, which I had a few, they gave them to another detective to work. So I don't know who got that Billy's caseload. I want to say I'm fortunate enough that when this break came in, I was brand new to the murder unit. Only had 4 or 5 murders under my belt, and they gave it to me.
Can I just like throw some context in here? So the murder of Mary B, right? Happened in Fiesta, which was April. She was found a week later. And then the way that works in homicide, you go to homicide, but you don't work murders, right? You work assaults, ag assaults, and then eventually up to murders. And then in December 31st of 1999 is when he killed the young lady in Del Rio. Okay, so just to kind of catch everybody up. So we're talking about an 8-month period now, right? Of this case kind of gone cold, right?
Yeah, it gone real cold. The big break came when, like you said, I can't remember the girl's name. To look for his name. Kayla. Tommy Lynn Sells breaks it. He knew the father. I did some work around the I believe it was a trailer house, mobile home. Did some work at the house, and for whatever reason, Tommy breaks in to the house and cuts Kayla's throat, kills her. There was another little girl that was spending the night, Kayla's friend. And he says, I want to do the same to you.
It was Kayleen, I'm sorry. I said Kayla, but it was Kayleen. Yep.
End up cutting her throat also. And he leaves. She's not dead. So she crawls out the window. And this is kind of out in the country, 1 or 2 acre plots. And she walked, I can't remember how far, it was a good distance. She was split ear to ear.
Yeah.
And she walked.
They're at the house by themselves?
I don't recall that. I can't.
There was a young lady named Crystal that was spending the night. Because the father was out of town.
Yeah, her father was out of town. She spent the night with a friend.
Tommy, who befriended the dad through church, knew he was out of town. Yeah, and of course we looked all this up. Like, it's not up here, right?
Yeah. She walks and beats on somebody's door, and they call the police. The Del Rio Sheriff's Department had that case, and the detectives, the Sheriff's Department, after getting the description from the survivor, basically knew who it was, and the Tommy Lynn Sells. He knew Tommy.
So was it Valverde County?
Valverde County.
Okay.
He knew Tommy, puts together a lineup, all this good stuff, gets the guy, fits him in jail. Walked a warrant on him for capital murder and attempted capital murder.
They flew that child up to San Antonio because it was a trauma level 1 center here, and it was either university or the one they shut down, right, on the old Wilford Hall, and they were able to save her. Yeah,
she was split ear to ear. I saw the pictures. It was gruesome.
He raped him, obviously.
Right.
He raped him, obviously, and then he killed one and tried to kill the other.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The Texas Rangers, and not putting anything off on the Sheriff's Department. This is a grisly murder. So Texas Rangers took over the case to make sure it was done.
And that's not uncommon in rural areas.
In small areas where you don't have a lot of murders, right? Texas Rangers usually does come in and help out.
So because they have a lot more resources.
A lot more resources, a lot more experience.
Yeah.
Especially back in that day. One of the Rangers knew about Mary B. She wasn't missing on the 18th, found on the 25th April. He knew about it because it was in the media, constantly. And he knew that Tommy was a carny. He would travel all over working carnies. So he said, well, maybe. So that ranger calls the homicide office and says, hey, we got this guy, did this to 2 girls. He travels the state of Texas working carnivals. We know him as a doper, he's a druggie, he's bad news. Excuse me, in and out all the time. Just to let y'all know, he may be involved. I know there was a carnival. She was missing from not the carnival, Market Square and the carnival used to meet together, right next to each other. So,
and maybe I missed this. How did they know it was him from the 2 girls?
Full lineup.
She did a sketch. The young lady, she did a sketch. Plus, the father knew they had the interactions with Tommy, and then the girls very quickly put together a sketch with a sketch artist. Looked just like him.
Look just like him.
He had a girlfriend in that area where he was going to, right?
You know,
With that-
do the lineups and
When you were describing that about being out in the rural area and two girls, that reminded me of the Green Mile. Have you ever seen the Green Mile?
yes. So,
Because they blamed it on
that big, same thing. This guy, the president,
working.
comes over, works in painting the house.
show him having some mesmerization. You haven't seen the Green Mile?
Oh, dude,
What
you
is
gotta
wrong
watch
with
it.
you, dude?
You gotta watch it because that part when they start getting into why this one character is in jail, he is identical.
It almost mirrors the case.
Well, they show him, obviously they show him doing some work, and you can tell he's just some ironed out, and he's looking at the girls, very admiringly. You know what I mean? And then obviously you see all that comes, but that's what you described. I was like, wow.
It's like that
Exactly. Yeah, right.
Really.
This guy exactly
It's
from the Green Mile.
exactly from the Green Mile.
Yeah. So I'm sorry. I wanted to go back to that because I obviously I want the listeners to know that, like, how did they identify him? Because obviously it sounds like they got onto it pretty quick.
They arrested him pretty quick on that. I can't remember. Sergeant Vasquez, Rosie Vasquez, was the one I was talking to the directors. I said, maybe. We have to go, because we don't have anything on this case.
Explore all
So she sends me and Danny Gonzalez, another top-notch murder detective, sends us to Delray. The talk amongst all of the murder detectives, there was 10 or 12 at the time. I don't know if you remember John Wayne Casey. He was a serial killer that the Texas Rangers got involved, and they cleared all these murders. Then come find out, the Rangers fed him all this information, and there was big controversy. Did he really do these murders, or the Rangers just clear cases?
Man.
So,
Okay.
I don't know if I can mention any names. We had one detective he said, this is bullshit. He said they're just trying to get in the papers. This it's going to be the Casey thing all over again. If you go down there, and like I said, I'm a new detective, and he's been there for years, keep your mouth shut. Don't give him anything. Don't give the Rangers anything. Just all right. So me and Danny go down there. All the way down there, Danny's pretty much had the same opinion. This is a waste of time. At least we're getting out of the homes. Meet with the Rangers first. They said, hey, this guy's, he's a doper, he's a drunk, he's confessed to all these murders. He doesn't like structure, he doesn't like authority. So take off your suit and ties, roll up your sleeve.
Did he work the 41 section on Dog Watch too? No, I'm just joking. I'm kidding.
He did, go in there like a don't belittle him, which I can proudly say I never did, especially investigate murders. I treated everybody like they were my best friend in life. So I took my tie off, unbuttoned my shirt, rolled up my sleeves, and my partner, I ain't doing that shit. Didn't. So we walk in. I shake his, shake his hand, and he goes to shake Daddy's hand, and big shake, just got to leave him up. Then when we first walked in, he's smiling. Tommy's kind of smiling. But that disappeared quick. So I asked him, hey, man, have you ever been to San Antonio? Yeah, I've been there a lot of times. I understand he worked Carnival, in Carnival. Yeah, been to San Antonio a bunch of times. But we in San Antonio this last April, we were working at the Carnival. So, this girl's from a picture married me. Dollars talked about. And he just shut us down. I'm done. He says, I'm done. I don't know what you're talking. I don't want to talk to you anymore. So, because the Rangers had read him his rights. Because he's in custody. Read him his rights. As soon as they say, no, I don't want to talk anymore, game's over. You got there. So we come back to town. And, come back, tell the sergeant that. He shut down. Didn't lower her up. Just doesn't want to talk. So what? January of 2000, we get another call from the Rangers. So in the meantime, I'm getting everything I can about Tommy Lynn Sells, doing background on him, checking fingerprints. The problem with the Mary B case, she laid out there for over a week. It was between 35 and the stockyards, and we had the low water drainage ditch right there.
Yeah.
We had 2 huge rains before she was found. So whatever evidence, physical evidence, intangible, is gone. The only thing that was there with her was a mattress located a couple of yards, 20, 30 yards from nothing else, just a decomposed body and that mattress. No, nothing. She's decomposed. The rain and the heat speeds that up.
They later ascertained that she was strangled and sexually assaulted, right?
Yeah, they were able to an autopsy because when you strangle, you got the Hollywood boy and that breaks. That's pretty much a give me an autopsy. They knew the manner of the cause, but that's it. There's no physical evidence whatsoever.
When you came back, did you have any kind of hunch or notion or intuition that this might be the guy?
I can't say yes or no. He's worth looking into. He looks good for it.
Right.
He killed one other girl, tried to kill another one. He's a corny. This happened during Fiesta.
You'll be able to speak to, because we were talking about Sheridan, to find out if he was a carny at that time.
Sandy, I called Sandy, and they had no record of him. He says, he's dead honest with me. He said, I don't keep records of these guys. Most of them just come in, we pay them cash.
It's almost like day laborers for the carnival.
Most of them just work for food. Right.
Isn't that crazy?
Oh, they love it.
Especially with the kids coming on.
Right. That's what I'm saying.
That aspect. All to get.
I mean, you have to have, let's say an instructor at the academy. They have to go through some sort of class that kind of vets them to be able to be a teacher to others. Of course, they're not kids in the academy, but, anything that you have, I'm a coach at CYO. I had to go through this, background check and these classes and stuff like that.
Okay.
You can hire
you hire all these druggies you want. If you look at the carnivals, look at the people that put the rides together.
Yeah.
I mean, my God.
Yeah, we're on the road.
They learn on the job, right? I mean, they learn how to operate the rides on the job, right? How to flip the switch, put them in there. But a lot of those are around kids, to Willie's point.
That's what I'm saying.
And you want to say, man, how many of these guys are people that are sexual predators or heaven forbid, killers?
They put on these people.
They're not vetted at all. They're not controlled, as far as I know.
No. I mean, I understand why, like you say, because it's not a very lucrative job where you have people lined up to work, at the carnival like that. But I mean, man, the threat and the risk that you're taking by having these people around the kids. Yeah. I just thought of that when you're talking about it.
Everybody, it's.
And just to kind of go back that day, she was there with her grandmother. And to Willie's point, if you've never been, which I know everybody probably has, but if you haven't been to the market square when it rolled into the carnival, there was no separation except for a street. So you would be in the market square and then you would be in the carnival. And the market square gets so packed that the grandmother just lost sight of her.
This is just a little 9-year-old girl.
Just adorable little girl that just got.
Depending on the night in the band, when things like that, it could be like that.
Oh, yeah. You can't walk past. Tommy played on that.
No doubt. And, the boldness of this guy, because if, I don't know, she had some male friends with her, they caught that dude with her, they'd kick his hopes.
Yeah.
And rightfully so. I mean, now that we know what we know.
Yeah.
But that's very bold of people like that to do that.
Yeah.
So when you get the next call, you go back?
I get the next call now. The Rangers are, hey, this, I'm going to talk to him. This guy, we're getting him on all sorts of murders. Through DNA, through, he knows specific things that, like I told you about the family that he killed. He befriends another guy. I want to say, if memory serves me right, he meets this guy at a bar. They have a couple of beers. He goes to this guy's home. He's got a wife and little
This
boy.
is you interviewing Tommy Lynn Sells. He's telling you this?
Well, no, the Rangers are telling Rangers are telling me this. And then me and Tommy talked about it a little bit also. To kind of step back, when the police get there, family hasn't been seen. I can't remember the exact circumstances. But they find mom and daddy and the little boy in bed. The bed is made up. But, it looks like they're in there asleep. They're next to each other. The sheets are pulled up, folded over, like with folded bed sheets. But they're dead as hell. They've been stabbed multiple times. Well, Tommy told the Rangers, yeah, I did that one. He says, well, how do you know you did that? Because the crime scene was cleaned up. And he said, well, I'm, blah, 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 blah. He said, well, that doesn't, maybe you read about that in the newspaper. He goes, did you ever find the little boy's dick?
Oh, yeah.
Well, he had cut it off, put it down at his mouse. So that's not in the newspapers. That's not on Channel 12. That's, we don't release stuff like that. So Tommy is able to give
that to the boy.
He tells me he was sexually assaulted when he was a child by his father, Tommy. And he said, this is what he told me about that one, is the guy started coming on to me. Yeah, so I killed. The reason you kill all of them is, the dead man tells no tales. Okay, don't leave any witness. He says that quite often.
This is at the point where he's now trying to give up other murders, right?
Oh, he's given up.
He's given up like 70, but I think they only got him for 22, right?
Yeah. They told me that case, and this is before I went down there and talked to him again. Then they told me about another one. They're trying to make me believe Tommy.
Did he have an attorney by then next to him when he's talking?
No. He gave up all rights.
Okay.
He gave up all rights. But go in there, read him his rights. You don't have to talk if you don't want to. You can stop talking anytime you want. Do you want to continue? Yeah, I want to continue. Another one that made me, that's put him good in my mind, is the Rangers told me he confessed to killing a guy in Arkansas. I can't remember that, a small town. Said that he was driving down the road, see this old man mowing the grass, and he just stopped, rolled down the window, shot and killed him. So the Rangers pack him in the car, drive from Del Rio to where this is in Arkansas. Tommy gave him direction. This house right here. So, well, Tommy, he told us it was a red brick house. This house is white. He said, no, it was right here. They're fixing to drive off when the homeowner steps outside, sees the car parked, and it's a big house, big yard, had a slope. And so the homeowner comes out, does one of these times, he's like, hey, what's going on?
Who are y'all?
So the Ranger gets out and identifies himself. He says, yeah, we got this guy, Texas, said he killed somebody here. That son of a bitch. He said, I'm out here mowing my grass, and he starts shooting at me, so I drop on the ground and play dead. And then he drove off. So, the Ranger's like, what? He said, yeah, so there's a police report on it, blah, blah, blah. He says, well, the Rangers tried to find a murder in this town, but they couldn't because the guy was never dead. Yeah. Well, he told us that it was a red brick house. He said, I painted it white a couple of months ago, a year ago, whatever it was. So he's giving information like that. So I'm starting to, maybe there's something to this. So a month or two keeps going by, and he's calling and says, yeah, he's telling us he killed her. There was a mattress, laying by her, and, so okay. So now we're getting there. So we said, yeah. So we run it by Susan Reed, DA time. We need more. Another month goes by, Ranger calls up. Yeah, he's still talking about this case. We'll come down. He came down, and we had a meeting with him. And of course, homicide, Sergeant me, the lieutenant, and Susan Reed was. And we're watching a confession. They're videotaping. They videotaped every conversation with him. We're watching what he's saying to them about Mary B. I said, damn. So did we put that there was a mattress on our news release? No. The police report's not, it's still open case, so it's not going anywhere. How do we know about the mattress? Well, maybe there's something to it. And Susan Reed says, well, we don't have enough. Go down and talk to them again.
This is in January of 20?
That was in January 2000, February. He's still talking about it.
So we're almost at a year later.
We're almost at a year. Yes. On March the 6th, excuse me, I've got some notes here. I'm doing everything we can, or not just me. we're doing everything we can. There's no evidence. We put flyers out for like foot patrol downtown. We're timing this picture. Have you seen the? If we could put him in the area, then we got saved.
Right.
Everything we're doing is not working.
Okay.
So March 6th, they called, said, hey, he's talking. He wants to talk. So me and a detective from missing persons go down. We go down, go into the ranger's office, and say, yeah, he's the ranger's office is in DPS. So if I get into where the ranger's office is, and it was Ranger Allen. I can't remember the other guy's name. Big guy. They said, yeah, he's in there if you want to go talk to him. I said, well, here. You got a place I can put my gun? Yeah, sure. And they lock it up at that door. He's in there, go on in. So I'll open up the door. And this mother, Tommy, is sitting behind the ranger's desk, great big wooden desk. There's a big gun cabinet behind him with all sorts of guns, handguns, shotguns, rifles. It's open. And here's Tommy holding a shotgun in his hand with a rag and he's cleaning it.
A confessed serial killer.
And I froze. I go, what the?
Can I get my gun back?
I did. What do you do?
What would you have done had you had your gun, your sidearm there, like, whoa,
Well, y'all would have drawn that.
Yeah.
I probably don't like it.
Very different interview technique, right?
I said, hey, it's all. The French said, hey, it's all. He's just cleaning up there. Don't worry. We got all the ammunition out. Everything's good. So, fuck. Okay. I go wait and see. He puts the gun there, up in there.
That was nice of him. Maybe just set this gun down.
He's smiling. He's eating this up. Yeah. Tommy is. He's because I guess, he read my face. He's eating this shit up. Does I hear you got some information on this case? Yeah. So why didn't you talk to me a couple of months ago? Well, he didn't like
Danny.
He didn't like Danny. He says, hey, he has some choice words for her. But he says, yeah. He says, I killed that little girl. I said, well, you're going to have to be more specific than that. You're going to have to really convince me.
So I know why, but, we may have some listeners that, hey, you said that he did it. Obviously, you have to convict him in a court of law. So you can't say I believe you outright, because he may just be admitting to something that, and if there's a real killer out there, then he's taking the blame for something.
Yeah, I want to admit to kill.
So you're trying to validate his information that he is telling the truth.
Yeah, some of these guys will confess to anything just to get the name.
Right. There you go.
A lot of them do, right?
Oh, yeah. A lot of them do. I got a story about that. So talk to him a little bit. He wants to go outside smoke. We go outside smoke. He said, yeah. He says, I've killed a lot of people. He said, I want to die for killing this little girl. He says, might as well come play. He said, I killed all sorts of people. There's men, women, children. He said, killed them. So we go back in, and the Rangers are setting up an interview room with the camera, kind of like we have here, get everything set up. And while they're doing that, I'm in there talking to Tommy. Just shoot the shit, boy. I said, what's your deal, dude? I said, you seem like a nice guy, because we're talking about all sorts of stuff. I said, you seem like a nice guy. If I saw you at a bar, I'd probably buy you a beer. He said, yeah, I'd probably kill you. He's smiling, but his eyes told a different story. And I thought to myself, yeah, you probably...
But that's that sixth sense that we're talking about because of your career. You feel that this dude, by his words, by the way he looks, he is not messing around.
Yeah, I went from casual to like, oh, shit. His eyes were dead.
But I interviewed him for quite a long time, so you had really kind of gotten to know him, right? Like at least observation-wise. And
I interviewed him from 8 o'clock in the morning, and we finished at 3 o'clock the next morning. Draws were all day on it. About damn near 15 hours before we turned the tape on. But I kept telling him, I said, you got to, he said, yeah, I did it. He says, me and the guy named Red. He says, I hitched a ride to San Antonio, met this guy Red. He's a karting, known from the karting. tall, skinny guy. He gives me a good description. This person detective was also a sketch artist. He drew a sketch of him. He says, yeah, we're down, we're drinking, trying to get a job. But Carl, just trying to get some work. Excuse me. He says, we're walking around doing dope, drinking. He said, we're pretty trashed. He said, I saw this 9-year-old little girl. He gave the age. He said, I saw this 9-year-old little girl. Walking around, she was crying. Now, this part, that's he trying to take, is he trying to soften it up? I don't know. He says, so me and Red says, well, we'll help you find your grandmother, your mom. He says, so we started walking. He said, I already knew we were dead. He said, we walked about 20 minutes. That's from where Market Square was to where she was found above stockyards. Walking, about the right time. He says, no, let me back up. The Rangers wanted the case file. They wanted all the reports, all the photographs. And me and Rosie Vasquez, the Sergeant Hoskins, we said, absolutely not getting you nothing. Because we're afraid if you give them pictures, that you feed them information. So when I'm interviewing it, I bought some pictures with it. And I showed him, and they were not specific. They were just a grass drainage ditch.
Just like some overalls, right?
Just overall. Didn't show the expressway, didn't show the stockyards, didn't show the railroad track. And there was a gap in the fence on the west side of the ditch. There's a gap in the fence where they just take it down. Didn't show him none of that shit. I just showed him grass, basically. Recognize this area? He goes, it looks real familiar. He said, there's train tracks and then there's a break in the fence. Well, shit. So, almost there, right? So we talked 15 hours. He said, yeah, he's went there. He said, there was a mattress. He said, there's going to be blood on that mattress. I said, well, did you stab her? He said, no. He says, I went to sleep. And I woke up and Red's having sex with him. So I go back to sleep. He says, I wake up again because Red's performing oral sex on me. He says, so I got my knife and I cut him. That's where the blood comes in.
Did you ever validate this Red guy?
No, we did. We got that sketch and we put it all downtown. It was same thing we did with Tommy.
So you didn't kill Red. He just cut
it. Called the hospitals, never found no record of it. Called the owner, Sandy, of the Sheridan. Called them. He had no records of Tommy or this guy Red. That's when he told me we hire anybody. So never found a Red. So I said, well, and as I said, continue. He said, she's sitting there and she's naked except her Mickey Mouse t-shirt. Her knees are to her chest. She's holding her knees, holding her legs, rocking. And I knew what Red did to her. He says, so I just walked up behind her and strapped her until she died.
Did he not have sex with her?
I asked. He said, nope, not me. I won't do it.
What was his point of taking her?
Poor little girl. He's been minimizing. He says, so I strangled her, killed her, then I jump on a train and I come back to do her. So still not enough, Tommy. That's what, there's some things. Tell me more about her to convince me that you killed her. And he goes, Dad, I really got to go to the bathroom. So, all right, let's go to the bathroom. He said, I don't know what else you want from me. He says, my DNA is in her. So that tells me he did sex. He said, my DNA is in her. I know you'll find it. I said, well, there's a problem with that, Tommy. I said, from the time she went missing, I didn't say killed. The time she went missing, Kylie found her. We had 2 major floods. It's real hot. He goes, she's decomposed. You couldn't get my DNA. Oh, yeah. He goes, all right. She's got the Looney Tunes or Mickey Mouse t-shirt. She's got pink fingernail polish on her fingernails, pink fingernail polish on her toes. And it gave a little bit more like that. I said, well, shit, none of that was released. What she was wearing. The fine details like the fingernail polish. Fingernail polish on toes, because he made the comment, must have been old because it was coming off. Only 2 or 3 toes had the fingernail polish in it. Like you look at the photos of her, and they did. But with the railroad tracks, the mattress, the gap in the fence, the description of the clothes.
This is why you're at the you're doing an in-person interview now, right? In March of 2000, right?
So he tells us all this. We start rolling film. He goes through the whole thing. We were going to try to. People are going to say, "Well, he should have videotaped the whole thing." Well, that would have been freaking 18 hours. And this was the old VHS tapes where you'd have to stop, reload, if there were no. So he gives detailed information. You're only going to know if you're there. And there's no other way around it. Says, all right, Tommy, bought him a cheeseburger, shake hands. And this is what I was going to say, he's a real nice guy. He's a real nice guy. If you were to meet him, you would say the same thing. Real personable, he could talk. Not intelligent, but he could hold a conversation. That he could just keep you enthralled in the conversation. So I come back to town. We run DNA on the mattress, trying to find blood, because he said he couldn't red with it. I don't think there was a red. I think he was at first going to use the sexual assault and blame it on red. I killed her, but I didn't want. And it's sexual assault. And I think the reason he finally told me or made that statement about my DNA being excited was because I wasn't believing he wanted me to well do it. He was, and through the course of the day, I was there, like I said, 8 in the morning to 3 in the afternoon or 3 at night. I left. He was trying to come clean. He says, if you look at the time when I was videotaped, he's typical meth head, skinny, and if you look at him a couple years later when he's in court, he's healthy, he's off the dope. Still got that same smile, had a beautiful smile. I truly think he was just trying to go clean.
And that happens a lot, right? Especially with these guys that want a body count, right? They want to get in the papers, be infamous or whatever.
They want to be, yeah.
And then the cordialness of it, right? Like all of that kind of stuff, that's kind of common too, right? All the way back to like Ted Bundy, remember? That was a long time ago. But they're very, their interpersonal skills are very high.
Very good, yeah. Because, I asked him. I said, dude, what's your deal? He says, because he had a girlfriend there in Del Rio. He says, I like to get high and I like to kill him. He says, I'll clean myself up and I'll get little odd jobs around there, mowing the grass, doing whatever out in the desert, doing whatever. Then I get that urge to get high. So I'll leave. I'll jump a train, hitchhike, get high. And when I get high, I like to kill. That he was sexually assaulted as a child by his dad. And most, like a baby, cut the penis off, put it in daddy's mouth. Well, he was a child and his daddy would sexually assault, so it all plays out. It's not an excuse, but it all plays out.
And, it's on the other side, and obviously been involved. I won't ever say I've investigated a murder, that's for sure. Dope and wanted people and property crimes and all. I want to express.
He did more than that.
Well, they arrested a lot of the murderers.
Right. But I just kind of want to clarify again, because there's a lot of officers that listen, more so than we know. I run into people all the time, but to the ones that are going to watch that, are not law enforcement. When you say words like "he was a nice guy," that doesn't mean you're praising him. You're telling us that he came off like that, and you could easily be fooled.
You could easily be fooled by him. Yeah.
Because
I would say he wasn't a nice guy.
No. But I'm just trying to clarify, because we speak that way too. You know, and I know what you mean, but other people that are listening may not know what you mean.
I've heard that.
Why is this guy saying he's a nice guy? This guy killed all these people. That's not. That's not.
He comes off as a real personable.
Yeah. Right. And a lot of these guys are they're emotionless. You know, his innocence, again, not an excuse, but this happens, was taken from him at a very young age, obviously by his father. You know, and when you're talking about. I have to tell you this, you know, why? Because it really hits home. My daughter is 9. You know what I mean? And as you're describing, and I didn't think about that until now, until you're saying this stuff, you know. And so it really hits home to have some fucking asshole like him, and probably not a red involved, but he was probably by himself, and do something like that. Take a daughter's
and smile about it.
Right. Well, when you're describing that, he's saying that she's sitting on the mattress wearing nothing but a Mickey Mouse. Talk about innocence.
Yeah.
Sure. Got there being raped. God knows. Talk about her whole world is turned upside down, you know, multiple times, you know, and she just doesn't know what the hell is going on. And it brings back to.
I mean, the terror that little child must have been going through. Just the absolute terror.
You know, they say murder is the ultimate crime. No, it's not, because you're dead woman.
Well, I work sex crimes, and I've also made that contention.
Sex crimes. When a woman gets sexually assaulted, she lives it every day. For the rest of, even if they can compartmentalize, it's there.
I'm glad you said that. I'm glad you said that. You brought that up. It's because we're in this era now, not to get off too far on a tangent, of protecting criminals. You know, as we're seeing, there's one party, fucking Democrats, are stepping up for these people and trying to protect these people. In fact, they were. I won't say were. They're probably still trying to do it. They're still trying to defend pedophiles, minor attracted people, MATs. They're trying to give them the label like it's okay that you're minor attracted. Yeah, and you know you're not going to stop that. There's nothing that you can do to stop these freakish people from being attracted to minors.
Is it a mental illness? Yes,
sure,
but you ain't gonna be able to. You're not gonna be able to fix it.
No, there's no way that should ever be justified.
Chemical castration and castration.
Justifying something like
and they
that
still
should never happen. Yeah, justifying that should never take place. So, but I mean, that kind of takes us back to Del Rio, right? Because I mean, we do a little research, and I pulled up, and so the father of Katie, right, the one that was killed. So you talk about the charm, right? Really, right? That charisma that this guy displayed.
How much guilt does he feel like?
Well, so check this out, right? So I looked at it and it says that he met him at church, right? So one, he goes to church, right? And so that's one thing where he knows people are willing to kind of engage him and help him out, right? Down on his luck kind of thing. This is what he said. It took just 10 minutes for Sells to uproot our family. His name was Terry Harris. Katie's father told the Kansas City Star, I guess they were doing something called Crime Library. He says he stole our daughter's accomplishments. Every birthday, every holiday, it eats me up that I tried to help Tommy. I talked to him. He was a guy down on his luck that I tried to help. He repaid me by killing my daughter. And so that kind of goes to that charm, right? Like this is what he does wherever he goes, right? He befriends, get you in that confidence, especially a down on his luck kind of. Most human beings want to help people.
And then take your world.
Well, all that was his opportunity. You know, you prey on people's, at church. What do they teach you? I'm not telling you not to, but you still got to be suspicious of people.
Oh,
always.
You still sit with your back to the wall.
Yeah. Yeah. You know, I mean, it's.
You still got your gun when you're sitting there talking to two turkeys.
Oh yeah, I carry all the time. You know, my not to get off on a tangent. My wife, we went to a cheer competition, major cheer competition. When we were we'd already left because my daughter competed one day, and we were on the road because we stayed the night. Well, she gets a text about an active shooter that had gone on at this. Of course, you get all these people. Are you there? Are you there? And we'd already gone. Of course, very first details of it, So my wife's like, she's quiet, and I said, well, yeah, babe, that's why I carry this specific gun. I brought this specific gun for that venue.
For that bird.
And she's like, you did? I said, yeah, well, for one, I have one on me, and the other one's in my backpack. And so she never asked me about work. She's like, well, what would you do? I said, well, number one, I'd get y'all out of there.
Absolutely.
and then the far away. I said, by the time I came back, it'd probably be flooded with policemen. If I'm running around in these clothes with a gun in my hand, I'll probably get killed. It'd be blue on blue. I said, but if it comes to me, I said, trust me, babe, I'm I've already made up my mind in that situation. But
Yeah, I've told mine, if I ever tell you, if we're at a restaurant or something, I ever tell you.
We all do, right? I mean, we all do.
Get your
That's
ass
just
up
the
on
way
the
we
table.
have to. Like, hey, if you see me do this, do that. Especially when we work, undercover jobs. Somebody walks up to me and I just start call him by another name. You keep walking. I mean, we all do that. But man, I wanted to ask you, because I was telling Willie, I wanted to do this in the most respectful way possible for homicides, because that was a cold case, right? That break came when he was arrested down there. The ranger put 2 and 2 together and said, hey man, this is probably, I don't know if he was in BICAP. It was around the 90s, so it probably was, right? That's just violent crime apprehension kind of thing, where the FBI keeps a database, because a lot of these people move from jurisdiction to jurisdiction to jurisdiction, and we only work our jurisdiction. Yeah. So I was telling Willie, I decided to look up like the total number of homicides from 2010 until now, year to date. I only found 20 through 2023, right? 2010 through 23. And then I just did 125 for all of 2024 and year to date. Just trying to be fair, right?
the chief is still working on how to reduce those numbers.
Yeah.
2020.
So what happened? Like, what's the biggest impact point,
idea.
right? That this case could have very well been unsolved. And so it came out to over 1,800 homicides. It's a lot of homicides, right? Since 2010 to year to date now. Keep in mind, I only found the numbers through 2023, and then I just kind of added 125. And I think that's fair, probably more on the conservative side. But anyway, and then I said, how many open homicides are there? Like, well, how many cold cases are there? There's over 2,000. And that doesn't go, I was joking about it. And I said, that doesn't go back to 1836 at the Alamo. That goes back to like the mid 70s, 80s, right? That's, so there's still more open homicides that are unsolved going back to that time period than there have been committed since 2010. And the reason I say that is because homicide's a tough job. There's a reason that show, The First 48, is out there, because after that, it gets harder and harder and harder to find things, forensic evidence, witnesses, things that put people in not only at the location, but involved in the crime. Can you speak to that a little bit?
Yes. When I first started in homicide and murders, we got 3 days off. We did 4 10-hour days. You would get a murder. Let's say, okay, we had 2 teams, 5 guys in each team. So 1 through 5, 1 through 5. Okay, this guy gets the murder, this guy gets the next part. This guy.
And that's amongst other cases, though, that you're working too.
Yeah.
You don't just stop everything. You to work.
No, we multitask. So I was off Friday, Saturday, Sundays. Not bad RDs, right? So if I'm off on Friday and there was a murder that happened, my team's up, I'm up. Guess what? I'm gonna get that murder till I come in Monday. So this is when we first started. Now, another detective, maybe on your team, maybe on the other team, will pick it up and do what he can, but he's got shit of his own.
Or the night CID guys, right? If it's at night.
And the night CID, bless their heart, I used to criticize them till we did a trade.
Right.
And I went to night CID for a month to see what they go through. Well, one of their detectives came to murders to see why we're complaining about the work they do. So I said, it's simple. You get a murder, you get 20 witnesses, you bring 20 witnesses and get a statement.
Let me just clarify this, right? So, and unless you want to do it, like night CID is a utility group, right? They work at night. Your days are during your hours are during the day.
They're triage. They handle any phone.
But they handle everything. They handle robbery, handle abduction, handle officer involved, whatever, until you guys get out there on the shooting team, homicides, ag assaults, and the list goes on and on. So they'll work them. They'll do a good job at them, but when their shift is over, that case is moved up to whatever follow-up unit, like sex crimes on a rape, homicide on this, ag assault, homicide, robbery, right? So in fairness, they do a really good job triaging, but once they're done, it's up to you.
And when I went to do that little experiment or that little trade, sure enough, murder comes in. Man, I got this. We're going to have all these guys come in for statements, do all this shit. And I sent all these guys back to night CID to get statements. Well, nobody's there because
Other things.
So here I am trying to take all these statements, and it took me damn near 10 hours. That's why they can't do all that, is because all the other crap coming in. So I learned a lot.
I'm glad you clarified that.
I learned a lot. But
I didn't have a very good.
Well, no, but see, they tried to fix that
They tried.
with a night homicide group, but then they put it in the hands of this imbecile who's now on the executive team. And it just fucked everything up because what they did is they didn't do their job. Because at that point, well, they were sucking up overtime, but what they were really doing is they weren't chipping in with night CID. So you get stuff, and this is not bashing anyone, but this, well, maybe. But, it's like a guy got shot 9 times. And then night CID says, hey, man, this is probably going to be a murder. Can you guys jump in? Is he still breathing? Yeah, well, then we're not helping. And so that mentality, we shot ourselves in the foot. Instead of moving forward, we went backward.
Well, then they fixed it. After that went away. Well, I don't want to say it. It failed. They said, okay, if you're up, you're getting a phone call, whether it's your, 3 o'clock in the morning, you're asleep, we're going to call you, you're going to come in and work your case. If it's your day off, you're up, you're going to come.
And that's still the way they do it, right?
That's still the way. Oh, I cleaned up on overtime. But we were doing better jobs on the case because we'd get out there, the body would still be there.
Right.
Everybody's still there. So we were on it.
There's a lot of catching up you got to do if you get it so many days later, or from someone that did all. If there's something that has to be said about you being on scene.
Yeah, so much. But I was off. You're going to work my murder that first day, but then you have your murder, your murderers.
Yeah,
because at any given time I was probably working 3 or 4 cases, active cases at a time.
And there's different skill sets, right? And different disciplines, right? And different commitments. So one detective may say, hey, man, that guy didn't see nothing. Well, let me talk to that guy. And then, or get his name and his address and making sure there's a follow-up opportunity. So all of those things come into play.
Well, that's just that. I mean, like what you just say, there's so many factors that can really steer that case
Absolutely.
forward or it can pull you back.
And every case is different. It's fundamentally the same kind of investigation. You just follow these simple steps, but every case is of its own.
It's unique. Yeah.
Unique. It's so.
But you also develop your style.
Yeah.
You become, and obviously if you've, which I know you did, had this work ethic, and what worked for you would help you understand the details to lead you somewhere. I mean, there's more than one way to skin a cat, so to speak, is what I believe.
And I can tell you what, 18 years I was in homicide, I worked with the best detectives.
It's good to hear.
Everyone just fantastic.
We have good detectives throughout the department.
Cared about the case. Yeah. Well, we always said it's about the case. But see, it's not your daughter's birthday that you're concerned with, right?
One of the most amazing things to me is that we have amazing detectives. Of course, we have some that aren't so amazing, but we're talking about the amazing ones today, right? Of which there's one, right? And so, but at the end of the day, they do a great job. It's and they do it despite sometimes of the hurdles or the obstacles that come from above, right? And we're not going to keep banging that horse. But at the end of the day, you had a sergeant that's like Rosie. Hi, Rosie, if you listen, and good sergeant, right? Good person all the way around. She was my lieutenant for a while, and she used to slap me around because I deserved it, right? But
every time I got in trouble.
Yeah. But at the end of the day, she wanted what was best for you, right? But I mean, she said, hey, you got to go down here and listen to, go up down there, right? Go talk to this guy, see what we have. Because I mean, to the earlier point for the context, if there's nothing immediately available in a short time period, you're still catching cases. And so it can get cold, right? So if you have over 2,000, that's a lot. Now, that's not a slight or any shade on anybody working it. It's just in San Antonio where you have 100 plus murders every year. If you don't have clues, you got to work the ones with clues.
So there comes a time where you I hate to say PFI, penning for guilt. Because if you PFI, that means you pending further investigation, you get it, sergeant sends off on it, and it goes into the file room and it's not looked
and
at.
that becomes one of the 2,000. Unless nowadays you have DNA, people get swabbed in prisons. The technology's changed. So we've had some murder cases that were in that file where somebody got swabbed in Michigan in a Detroit penal institution, and then they said, oh man, this DNA hit in San Antonio.
If we put it in the database.
Right. So now we're dating ourselves because now that's just general, but when we came on, that wasn't general.
And you only have, when I left, there was only 2 cold cases, Deleon and Kim Barrett were the only cold case detectives.
They've tried everything. Retired
for
detectives.
2000. Yeah.
I mean, it's tough, right? I mean, we're
Even though we're a
acknowledging
large
this.
department, we don't have enough personnel. Well, we talk about that, and then we're talking about homicides only. We're not talking about street, patrol, robbery, thefts, all this other stuff.
Sexual assaults.
Yeah.
I'd hate to see how many cold case sexual assaults.
Yeah.
If the citizens of San Antonio knew how many sexual assaults occurred every month.
DNA cases that just get not properly followed up on.
And I will say, and because it has to be.
And it's not the detectives, some people, when there's nothing,
Yeah,
there's nothing.
But what I'm saying, it has to be said because it's extremely important. I mentioned this mayoral race that's coming up. I believe that, not to get off on a tangent, but it coincides with what we're discussing. There's a stark contrast between these two. One is on that side that really wants to defund the police, and they don't care. They think they can do more with less. And we're already talking about how, as much as we're a bigger department, we think we have enough resources, we're still doing with less because of the size of the city. The other part of it is handcuffing the police, figuratively, of not letting us handle, especially the street cops, the ones that want that excitement, the ones that want to beat the streets, arrest bad guys. They're handcuffed in the sense of doing what they should do, and just looking for crime, looking for suspects like Tommy Lynn Sells, hopefully catching a guy like him with some dope in his pocket.
Yeah, and that's a great point, Willie. And I know I'm interrupting you, but I just want to lose my thought. It's a great point because one of the things we talked about in one of the first podcasts I did with Willie, it's unquantifiable. Because if you book this guy with some drugs or something else and you put him in the penitentiary, there's a victim out there that's just not a victim. They just never know about it.
Right.
And so, well, we're kind of getting off. So did you go to trial? Did he go to trial here or did he plead it out?
He just put out.
Okay. So out of the 22 murders that they put him at, there's only 2 that he was convicted on. One is the one in Del Rio where he got the death sentence, and yours. So that's remarkable, man, because there's other 20 out there that
That's probably not.
they know he did it, but they really didn't.
Well, you don't follow up on it. Already County is going to kill him, or the state's going to kill him. That's what I'm saying, man. Why waste the money on trial?
It is all about the money.
It makes no sense. Okay, yeah, he's going to be found guilty, but we're still going to kill him. So why go through all that?
So when we first talked, I said to you, I said, hey, Ray Bob, when we were talking about this, you're like the first person that came up because I knew you had this case. And at that time I was working, because a lot of people don't know, when you work major crime, homicide, sex crimes, if you're working on the weekend, we all work together because it's a small crew and we give out cards, remember? Cards. And then if you get phone duty, so if a case came in and it just happened to be a sex crime, multiple sex crimes, multiple homicide, we would all work on it together, right? And so that's how we did it. So, but I started looking at it and I said, we were talking a little bit and I said, man, there has to be more serial killers. So these are the ones that are associated that I found with Texas and in particular San Antonio. So Richard Ramirez grew up in El Paso. I'm from El Paso. Thank you very much. Night Stalker out in LA. Angel Resendez, you brought that up. The railroad killer killed 4 people here. You said Kenny Albrecht worked that case, right? Classmate of ours, right? And then we had Henry Lee Lucas, who confessed to a shit ton, 200 plus killings, I think 11 convictions. And then here, 2012 to 2015, we had a guy named Johnny Avalos, which I completely forgot about until I read it. Strangled the 4 girls. Janine Jones, the crazy nurse, I think she was arrested in Kirk County. They tried to retry her a couple years ago. The Mexican Mafia guy, remember the West French murder? His name was Beaver, but his name was Robert Bettis. Bettis, right? Yeah. Good for 12 murders. Ira Atterbury, remember the guy at Fiesta, since we're talking about that, killed 2, shot 50. Then I was reading something in that very renowned newspaper, local newspaper, The Current. And it said something like there's been a couple murders in Woodlawn Lake and they're trying to push that thing, but there's nothing to suggest that's a serial killer. And then if you just go national, you got Ken Bianchi, the Hillside Strangler, that twisted fuck Dennis Rader, the BTK killer out of Kansas. They're all twisted, right? But I mean, and then you got David Berkowitz and Son of Sam, John Wayne Gacy, the guy up in Chicago that killed 30 some odd young men, Jeffrey Dahmer, Ted Bundy, and the list goes on and on and on. So it's easy to it makes it easier to understand why some of these don't get solved, right? I mean, because of all of the different variables and things that have to come into play, right? So would you say this is like just the highlight of your career? They're all important, but biggest case?
You know, you make crack about the daughter's age. Saw that?
I saw it.
So, there's a lot on forget.
We're all human, man. We're all human. And it didn't hit me until you started talking about 9-year-old. It was my daughter. And
I think most about the cases I didn't solve.
Those are tough, right? We were talking about probably one of the, if there's a Mount Rushmore homicide, Jimmy Hogan's on it, right? And we talked about Jimmy. Hi, how are you? Hope you're watching.
yeah, Jimmy.
Jimmy's good.
He had the Heidi Seaman case, right? And so the reason I bring up Heidi Seaman, one, is because I was telling you right before we started, I didn't know this, but that's the largest search effort ever by the FBI to date. Over 8,000 volunteers. But another young lady was taken right around that same time. This was the first year we were out of the academy. We graduated in 89. This was in 90. Her name was Erica Boteo. Both of those cases are still open. And we talked that Jimmy had a good suspect, right? Jimmy strongly believes that there is a suspect that should be in handcuffs. And I'm not speaking for you, Jimmy, brother.
Jimmy talked about that. I think the guy finally died of AIDS.
Yeah.
And so a lot of that stuff happens, but it's important to remember those people. It's important what you just said. The cases that you think about the most are the ones you couldn't close, right?
Let me tell you the story about Jimmy Hogan. He was so into this case, or involved in his case. She was tied up with a certain knot. That's when we tie a knot, it's kind of basic. This was a intricate knot. I just said. He gets online. This is right around time computers. Everybody's getting computers. He gets online to Jimmy. Sorry if I'm getting it wrong. To like a bondage website where everybody gets together and talks. Hey, I'm a murder investigator in San Antonio Police Department investigating the murders. Anybody seen this kind of knot? Can you? And people responded. I wouldn't have thought of that.
Yeah.
Yeah, but he was so trying to find something.
That's awesome.
I think what you said hits probably more home than anything else. Is the ones that you weren't able to close, and I know that case for Jimmy's a big thing, man. I know he thinks about her today, and that's the other thing is like we get introduced or see so much that sometimes we just forget about the things we saw that we forget to think about more often, right?
I'll drive with my wife, and especially when my stepdaughter was quite young. We drive around town and say, I had a good murder over here. Who the hell talks like that? She said, what? Don't you shut up.
You say that. I drive around the city just depending on where we go with my family. And because of being on SWAT for so long.
SWAT and SOU, you know that?
Yes, I was like, we made a good pop here. I had a chase here. I probably got one of my glasses lenses left over here because I ran through a tree.
Some of my gloves over there.
But I don't tell them that because I don't know. I just don't think because they're interested in I remember that stuff, but for you to remember murder here because you're remembering that.
I can see every face.
Ugliness.
I can see every face. My first dead body, my first experience with a dead body was a little girl. What's it called? Quinceañera. I was with the Explorer Post 700, the communications. We had kind of early model cell phones, and we were able to run them to landlines and worked with civil defense, all this good stuff. Just stolen bicycle. Doing all this stuff. They had a drowning out at Medina River, just outside of town. So we set up our little command post, get our ham radios, we had CBs, telephones, and so back then it was cell phone. So if somebody needed anything, an officer would come, make a phone call from our little bed. So we're there 2 days looking for this little girl. They were out there taking pictures, and she slipped into the just after flood, or just after hard rain. She goes under. So they call out civil defense. We're out there with grappling hooks. but there's so much trash that you could do this. So right in the middle of this search, and that's what civil defense did, was this kind of stuff. Civil defense was acquitted, no more money. So they packed up and left. And this little girl stole his wallet. So me and my cousin stayed behind with the van. And this deputy was pissed because everybody left. So mom and dad is still out there. And that's been 2 days. He strips down his underwear, he's got his cowboy boots on, and he throw me a rope. So we throw him a rope. He ties it off. We pull her out. She's in her little white dress. And still see her face.
Yeah. It's hard not to, right?
I thought that was so cool of him to not be able to kill the deputy.
And that's what it takes. That's why I say when you develop your own style, because I've seen it, and even in our own investigations, someone going a little bit further, and someone just going, and leaving it, because I think people don't understand that there are those types of men and women in law enforcement that give a shit to go that far, to do that, go, you know what, or what you just described, if her parents are still there. They have hope. You imagine how they're feeling?
Oh,
they have a feeling that she's dead, and then everybody's given up on her.
They have a feeling that they know she's dead, but they that little bit of hope.
It's just that little bit, right? And you don't want to get.
That's why I quit murders. My last year, I told the sergeant, says, I'm done. I'm going to retire soon. I don't want to spend any time in court after I retire. I will, if I could go a couple of times.
Yeah.
And Jimmy Cole put me in a cold case. And I reached the end of the internet. This is, I finally looked to him and said, Jimmy, give me something, dude. Done enough. Just relax. Try through. I forgot what I was going to do. But I knew. I got up one morning and I was shaving my head. So I don't want to go to work. I just lost the drive. And I told Jimmy, I says, my heart's not at it. That if you're going to investigate murders, you have to have the case covered first. It's about the case. And I was losing that drive.
Yep.
So I'm doing nobody any good.
I'm sure I hope I'm not getting his name wrong. I'm pretty sure it's Raul. Worked murders for a long time. Cardenas. So I carried a murder file with me for 15 years. And the only reason I did is because I knew the guy was a doper. And he killed this young guy right over here at Callahan and 410. And I remember the mother coming on every year talking about the loss of her child. And so I knew he was a doper. We worked dope. Eventually we ended up getting a lead. We knew who the guy's name. His name was Anthony. Well, he's in jail now for murder. And we couldn't put it. Ultimately, we wound up running a search warrant, getting somebody to flip and giving it to Raul, and Raul closed that case. So I know what you're talking about. I had no relation to that thing. Night CID stopped him that night. That's the only reason he was ID'd. It was a mix-up. They let him go. And ultimately, but that mother's face on TV every year just did something to me. And, Raul, I told you in person. I told you in person how much I appreciated. When he finally closed that case, he called me and says, hey, man, we got him. And he was in jail on a drug case, and then they found the guy he was with, and the guy goes, hey, Rolf, I'm getting this wrong. I've been waiting for you. I needed to get this off my chest. So, what you guys do, the men and women of homicide, is amazing. Our jobs were different. I did work sex crimes. That's a tough job. But working dope and chasing bad guys and fugitives.
Well, and I have a very similar story. Again, there's so much, like people would go like, what's the craziest thing? I don't know. You have to be specific.
Jesus.
It's the craziest thing you've been involved in. I don't know. But just talking about this, I believe it was, I don't remember the year. I was going to say 2005, but that was a shooting that we got into. But riding with Leo Gonzalez, you remember Leo Gonzalez, we were partners. And I lived at an apartment off of Euclid, East Euclid, over there. And since it was close, and there was a lot of homeless people around there. So because we can go anywhere, I'd go by on duty, just drive by, make sure everything's okay. So we're driving down the road and we see these two guys, jack them up, stop them, whatever. One dude's got a felony warrant, take him to jail. Didn't get to make it to my apartment. taking the jail. We're not far from, the mag. So we come back. As we're going through, we see this white guy walking along. And he catches our attention because he gives us that old shit look. He looks over his shoulder and he looks this way, and he keeps doing that. Well, he walks into a yard. I'm thinking, well, if we jump out on him, it's going to run it. So let's play stupid, aloof, and keep going. We kept going, got on St. Mary's, made a left, turned around and parked. He's got to come out this way. We'll stop him back. After a while, he didn't come out. Well, maybe he lived there. Maybe we were wrong. We come back, go back the same way. There's this guy walking with the same guy we stopped that was with the felon that we had before. And they're walking away from us, so we roll up behind them. We were actually going after another car because we given up on him. But we were like, nah, forget the car. This is the dude that was giving us that old shit look. As we roll up, I tell Leo, because Leo was younger than me. I was kind of training him and all that. And I said, hey, because this white guy, he turns around and he looks back. I said, he's going to dump something or he's going to run. One of the two. I said, watch him. So we roll up, park behind him. He dumps something, And the other guy, he's like, oh, man, again. I said, yeah, turn around, motherfucker. Patted him down. The fuck out of here. We'd already ran him, so we didn't, we knew he didn't have a warrant, Get out of here. Well, Leo had already handcuffed this guy. And he was like a homeless guy. He had a bunch of paper in his back pocket. Leo's throwing him on the car, whatever. And I go over there, and he dumped a syringe, narcotics paraphernalia. That is he abandoned the contraband, so he is under arrest for a Class C misdemeanor. Right. So this guy's talking, whatever. He goes, I said, hey, dude, you dropped something. He said, that ain't mine. I said, dude, you're not that good. I saw it. And he had what looked like his birth certificate. So I picked it up, went to the computer, got in there, boom. Pops up on the computer a 20-year-old capital murder baron out of Mississippi and an FBI flight to avoid prosecution warrant. And I'm like, holy shit. And so I get out, Leo still patting him down, searching him, whatever. And I said, hey, bro, I got some good news and some bad news. I said, the good news is you don't need to worry about this syringe. The bad news is you go back to Mississippi.
20-year-old.
Yes. So this dude, he was kind of mentally off. And so his grandparents took him in. And he asked to borrow the car. And this is a story because I went to Mississippi for the trial. And so he asked to use the car. And they're like, they're not going to let him use the car. Well, he gets up in the morning and grandpa is cooking breakfast. Grandma's still in bed. He kills grandpa with the ball peen hammer, beats his brains in right there. Then he gets a shotgun, goes upstairs and shoots grandma while she's in bed. And flees, takes the car and flees. Grandma, and this is all, they have the newspaper clippings, talk about it. It was in Corinth, Mississippi. So it was a big deal. I think Corinth wasn't a big town. So grandma had stumbled down the stairs, and in her blood, she wrote, they called him KD, shotgun, is what she wrote on the wall.
Oh, shit.
Yeah. And so he went to Mississippi, to Tennessee, is where they found the car, and then he disappeared. The chief of police or sheriff of Corinth, whatever, I'm going to investigate this myself. So on the city's dime, they're telling me this, he takes his whole family to Tennessee because he's just going to use it as a vacation. Yeah. He comes back, and for some unknown reason, they're telling me this. He committed suicide. He must have jumped off the bridge. Was there a body? No. He just fucking solved the case himself out of laziness. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So apparently they thought, according to him, he was dead. Well, here we catch him 20 years later. There were no fingerprints on him because he didn't have a record. So there was nothing that they could have had. They were in the system, whatever. So because on the way to jail, I'm looking at this dude. I said, under this name. I said, there's no way you've never been stopped. Because, you can see if he's been run by the police. But yeah, he was real quiet. It was weird. It was weird. He said, no. I said, no fucking way. You have not been stopped by the police or been arrested. Not to mention he's a doper. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it turns out he had an alias in Austin where he had a dope history in Austin there.
But no fingerprints connected.
Correct. To this. Damn. So, yeah, it was a big deal. We sent him over there. But, talking about murders and things like that. And it's that's what I mean when I talk about us being handcuffed. officers are afraid to do those things.
They're afraid to be proactive.
To be proactive, then you can find shit like that. You know, all these anti-police crybabies are worried that we're going to end up in a scuffle and we might have to injure or kill these people. Well, maybe, but number one, you're supposed to comply, and we have the right to do these things.
How many policemen have been hurt, second guessing themselves because they're afraid they're going to get in trouble for
a lot.
Yeah.
And I won't say just
I don't want to put my hands on them because
are waiting to be, because they're not doing that. And, you know, in our day, there were people that would do shit out of laziness, you know, out of ignorance. There were some people that could fight crime if it jumped in front of them. We knew that, you know.
But it was a paycheck.
Yeah. So, Ray Bob, this was outstanding work. And I'm sure you got told many times. I hope they did tell you that.
Well, thank you for talking to us about it, man. Really,
I really didn't do anything. Paul put them in his stuff.
No, from the time that he was convicted, or whatever you call it, you know, and the time they executed him, how long was that?
Oh man,
it's died in 2004, right? Yeah. So not pretty quick for death penalty standards. Yeah.
Because you know you're convicted of your appeal. It's automatic appeal. And these guys hire lawyers like push it. So this guy just
you may or may not know this. I don't know if David might know, but I witnessed Rocky's killer's execution.
Did you?
Yeah. We went to Huntsville, and me, Wayne, Joey watched this guy, the guy, die.
See you later.
Yeah.
Did you have any last words for him? What was your last words
to Rocky?
No.
Oh, I'm sorry. Because I remember.
No, to Tommy Lynn.
All right, take care. The freaking redneck. So, because hey, thanks, man.
Yep.
Well, all right, take care.
Well, it was. You think you didn't do anything, but you did do something, and you put this guy away and closed the case for him. Sure. Again, we haven't spoken to the family,
but you know what?
I'm sure the family appreciates it immensely.
Not to get off on going back to something, what you said, he wanted to talk to you, but not to Danny, because he didn't like Danny. You know what I mean? Yeah. Obviously, we know. And Dan, I'm not going to blame Danny. You know, he's thinks like, fuck this guy.
Well, Danny was Mr. Congeniality for the police department, 20 years running, right? I'm kidding. Danny wouldn't even shake my hand.
Yeah, he was very, yeah.
So Danny's the guy that kind of had dark circles around his eyes. Am I right?
Danny was there a long time. He used to be partners with Butch Majeka.
Him and Butch were tight.
I don't remember the guy.
Yeah,
but
he was a really good investigator.
Okay, I'm sure I know him from whatever, but it does take someone like yourself to put yourself, and it's all erosive on your health and your mentality to go through these things. People don't understand how much it weighs on you. Just like a couple of times here, I can tell you're getting emotional about it. You can't erase it from your mind there. And like you said, you had this. You remember the cases most that you could solve, and that takes a special person. And I hope people understand and spread. Of course, there's some people that just hate the police and they don't give a fuck until they need the police. We know that, but they don't understand that type of person that you are and were at the time working. I would say equally that we were, that gave a shit, because you can't find those people hardly anymore, or they are out there, but they're just so afraid of getting in trouble.
They're getting in trouble.
Yeah.
They're there.
Yeah. But do you have anything else to say, man? I've enjoyed this conversation.
I appreciate you, Ray Bob. I do, man. And I go back a long way with you. I could probably tell stories just about you and I being out there, us running into you, arresting some people, chasing some people. But at the end of the day, your work ethic has always been top notch, and you can see that in everything you've done.
I have to say that about both of you.
Well, I appreciate it.
It was a pleasure working with you.
Thank you so much. Yeah, thank you, Ray Bob. Folks, I appreciate y'all watching. Please comment, share, like. I know some people are afraid to say certain things, but please do so. I always tell people, just laugh at our stuff so you can say, yeah, I was stupid or whatever. At least we know that you're acknowledging us. But you were going to say something?
If you're active, don't take this job so serious. Don't marry this job. Do your job and go in and leave the job there with your home, be with your family.
Yep.
Good
Separate.
advice. But sometimes that's really hard to separate.
Yeah.
Well, thank y'all. Have a great day. Be safe.